everybody, and I have to say I'm really excited everybody's here. You know, I've forgotten what you look like, some of you. Some of you look better on Zoom, I have to be Anyway, I'm Sue Wilson, Chairman of the Council, and I'll be chairing this meeting of full council, which is being held in the Braintree Arts Theatre. This is our first in-person meeting, so that's quite something. I think we've done really well. Actually, since we had the full council on the 17th of February 2020, so it's a long time. This evening, due to the venue and my voice disappearing, and our seating arrangements, we will be operating slightly differently, and your patience would be very much appreciated. First of all, I would like to welcome all those in attendance this evening. We're not being webcast, so there's nothing live, but an audio recording will be made, which will be published on the council's website after the meeting. If members wish to speak, can you really put your hands up very high, please, so we can see them? And to ensure that all members can be heard and their contribution clearly captured for the audio recording of this meeting, we have two governance officers who will be coming around to hand a microphone to those members who wish to speak. And this evening, members, please can you remain seated when you speak. And for the safety of the officers walking in the chamber, please do not place items in the vacant rows and stairs. A bit like going to cinema, isn't it? Members, for this meeting, we will be voting by way of a show of hands. Therefore, members should raise their hands when indicating their vote when called upon to do so. We've set aside 3 hours for this meeting. We don't have any extra time, so what we don't get done won't get done. I would be extremely grateful if you could consider this and keep your speeches concise in order to assist with the ensuring that we conclude the meeting on the time allocated. We are not expecting a fire alarm. However, in the event of an alarm, please leave via the fire exits and assemble in the car park. Yeah, we'll do our air hosting bit. Can I also remind all in the meeting to have their mobile phones switched to silent? Right, so thank you, members. I'll now proceed to the first item of business. Agenda item number 1, apologies for absence. We have got quite a few tonight for all sorts of reasons. William Cossiner, James Coleridge, John Bow, Tom Walsh, Paul Thorogood, David Hume, and if he's not here, which he's not, I don't think, Hilton Johnson. Is there any other people not here?
See any.
Item 2, declarations. Does anybody have any declarations of interest they wish to declare? You could please state the items. Do you want to go? Right, we'll go that way then.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would like to declare a non-pecuniary interest as a member of Essex County Council, because it's highly likely Essex County Council will be mentioned in some of the agenda items this evening.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I declare a non-pecuniary interest as a member of Essex County Council, but in particular to agenda item 8, the motion by Councillor Abbott, as I am the County Council Executive Member with responsibility for the Essex Forest Initiative.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to declare an interest as a member of the Essex Climate Action Commission, as I'm going to make a number of references and ask a question about it.
Thank you. Just a very quick one. We'll get to agenda item 10. I'm a member of Coggeshall Parish Council, but I am not on the neighbourhood plan. I will stay no.
Thank you very Madam Chairman. Can I declare a non-pecuniary interest in agenda item 11, please, revised Horizon 120 Local Development Order. As Vice Chairman of Great Norton Parish Council, who made representations to that. I was not part of those representations, so I will remain. Thank you, Madam Chair.
There's just one more from Councillor Smith. Yeah, I think it's
Thank you, Chair. Can I just declare a NPI in general as I'm a member of Essex County Council because of the references will be made to tonight's meeting. Thank you.
I didn't see any others, but I don't know if you want to just confirm.
Is there any other? No? Okay. So the minutes of the previous meeting, can I have a proposer to approve the minutes as an accurate record of the meeting of full council held on the 7th of June? Councillor Butland. I now need a seconder. Councillor Ricky. The minutes have been moved and seconded as an accurate record. All those in favour, please indicate. Members, there are no registered speakers for this evening's meeting of full council, so I will proceed to the next item of business, agenda item 5, announcements and statements from the chairman and the leader of the council. I will now make my announcements. The Queen's birthday honours for 2021. I was absolutely delighted to announce that 2 of our residents have received honours in this year's Queen's birthday honours list. These honours mark the extraordinary contributions and service of people in the United Kingdom. And the awards this year was, one was an MBE to a person for services to construction, and the second one was a BEM for services to the food supply chain during COVID-19. And we have actually written to say well done to these people. I will now invite Councillor Graham Butler, leader of the council, to make any announcements.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I only have one announcement to make, but I'm sure it's one which will meet with the approval of the whole council. We have with us tonight, Madam Chairman, Trevor Wilson, who has been our head of finance, and still is our head of finance at the moment, but who will be retiring in the middle of August. So this will be the last council meeting that Trevor will be with us. Trevor has served the council for 33 years as both man and boy. He can't be more than about 40 now, I would have thought. But a huge service that he's given both to the council and, of course, to the residents of Braintree. I came across Trevor when I first got elected in 2003. He's been a constant font of wisdom, knowledge, advice, not being afraid to say, well, I'm not sure you can do that, Graham. And I've always taken his advice very seriously. And I think, Trevor, most of the time I've actually taken it as well. So that's been very good. But, I mean, I would just like to say on behalf of the council as a whole, and I know my colleague group leaders will be speaking shortly, to say thank you for the service you've given us and to wish you a very, very long retirement. And please make sure that you take the local government pension scheme to the cleaners for as long as possible. Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Abbott, I think, wanted to speak.
Thank you. Yes, I'd very much like to agree with what the leader of the council said. 33 years is a long time to do anything. I've never worked for a council. So it's one of the first things I thought of when I heard it was that long. I've always regarded going to be hugely missed, and all the best for the future.
Councillor Pell.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, I have to say, Trevor, you're not allowed to go. We'll lock the doors. You can't go. I've known you since you came. I've been here just a little longer than you, and you have always been so helpful to me personally. You've explained things in a way that we can understand. Finance is a difficult subject, and you can be blinded by figures and everything else, but you've always been so calm, so kind, and helpful to whoever you are, and you are really going to be sorely missed. And I remember way back when we had the Icelandic bank problems. But you have just really been a real gentleman to us all, and we are really, really going to miss you. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mann.
When I joined the council, finance was like a closed book for many councillors. It was like a secret garden guarded by senior officers, and councillors were not encouraged to trespass. But then along came Trevor and others, and the standards of presentation and explanation shot up, for which you can all be very grateful. Trevor's dependability, his clarity and approachability has been an example to us all. Now, anyone who's stuck at local government finance for so many faithful years has earned our respect and admiration, and our best wishes for that long, healthy and happy retirement.
I think we should give Trevor actually a jolly good round of applause for being really good. Right, we now proceed to agenda item number 6, Customer Service Excellence Award. And I'd like to invite Councillor John McGee, Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Transformation, to make the presentation to full council. Councillor McGee, please remain seated to make your presentation.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman and members, you will be aware that in April 21, Corporate Customer Service Excellence Assessment took place virtually. The assessor met with a range of staff and managers to review customer-facing operations and looked at year 1 of a 3-year rolling programme of continuous improvement with focus on how BDC has been responding to new demands during the pandemic, and in particular, what has worked well. This is the 6th year we have undertaken a corporate assessment, and the feedback from the assessor was extremely complimentary. The authority was praised by the assessor for our insight into commercial and business areas and our approach to the pandemic. Our partnership working, communications and our organisation's culture were also commended. And advised he has found this to be higher compared to other organisations that he has dealt with. I would like to quote from the assessor's report, because I think it's really important and encapsulates why this award is so important. The council, I'm removing the word also because it's not relevant in this text. The council was the second in the country to restart its planning committee decision-making process, rather than taking decisions through delegated authority to officers, allowing citizens to view the decision-making process openly, online, with some meetings having been viewed by as many as 400 citizens. The leadership team has worked passionately and tirelessly over the last year to support and advocate for the customer. They have strived to maintain access to and delivery of services to customers, led and supported others in helping the most vulnerable of Braintree citizens, and ensured open spaces have been well maintained to encourage access to and aid citizens' well-being. The outcome is that we retain Compliance Plus in 3 areas, gain Compliance Plus in further 4 areas, making a grand total of Compliance Plus in 7 areas of the assessment, In total, over the whole 3-year rolling programme, we now have 21 areas of Compliance Plus. Madam Chairman, I'm delighted to present the certificate to you this evening that recognises the hard work of officers, staff and members in what has been the most difficult time for all local authorities. I won't actually pass it to you. It's on your right, on my left, and those that wish to see it can see it on the way out. Thank you, Chairman.
Wearing your mask, please. Thank you, Councillor McGee. We'll now move on to the next item on the agenda, item number 7, motion on European Championships 2020. This motion is set out on page 6 of the agenda. Before inviting Councillor Butland to present his motion, I can confirm that no amendments have been received and the motion remains as published in the agenda. As Councillor Butland and Councillor Tom Cunningham, the proposer and seconder of the motion, are present, this item may proceed. Councillor Butland, please remain seated while you present and formally move your motion. Please can I remind you that before you make your speech on your motion, it must be seconded.
I formally move. Second it.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. Councillor Tom Cunningham, you are recorded as the seconder of this motion. Please confirm that you second this motion, and do you wish to speak after Councillor Butland's speech?
A second motion, Madam Chairman, happy to speak afterwards.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Members, the motion has been formally moved and seconded by Councillor Butland and Councillor Cunningham. I will now invite Councillor Butland to make his speech.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move the motion as on the order paper on page 6. Along with some 30 million other people, I sat on the evening of Sunday the 11th of July watching the European Championship final. At about 9 o'clock, I thought, I'll draft a motion. Unfortunately, by 10 o'clock, I had to amend my own motion because, of course, unfortunately, we didn't win. But what made me wish to proceed with this was, I think, the achievements of the English team, both on the field and also off the field, did so much to raise the spirits of everyone in this country, whether they were football fanatics or just mildly interested in the game. And certainly, I think they brought a lot of pride to this country. More importantly, however, I felt that they showed a team spirit that transcended race and religion and showed that teams could work effectively whatever their backgrounds. And I think many of us saw that as a fine example to all sports persons in this country. I also think that many of us were particularly impressed with the leadership of the manager, Gareth Southgate, who in all interviews, etc., was calm, collected, and also the support he gave to that team of younger players was, I think, something which showed huge human management potential. So it's a motion which says we would rather have had my original one, that we had won, but that actually we can be proud of what has taken place. And hopefully the actions which have taken place in other areas will be shown for what they are, and that we will follow the example, and our younger people will follow the example of the England team, their players and managers. I so move, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Well, I have to say there's not a great deal I can add to what Councillor Butland has already said. But I think if we look at those few weeks of the European Championships, the emotional roller coaster that is usually involved in supporting the England national team, mirrored by those who actively and enthusiastically support domestic football teams, the chant of football coming home and the anticipation that it was coming home perhaps didn't quite pan out as we hoped, but I think in a way football did come home. Not only are we very proud of the performance of the players, as Councillor Butland said, we're rightly very proud of who the players are and how they approach the game. England football and our Premier League, for most of my living memory, has been dominated by superstars, heroes. Unfortunately, sadly, I think the celebrity of those superstars has taken over the papers, the discussions in the pubs, rather than what is seen and what is demonstrated on a football pitch. Not only are these great young players, they're actually great blokes too, and they remind us of footballers who wore the England shirt some years ago. Many of us remember 10, 15 years ago when we did have an international team of stratospheric superstars. There seemed to be, Madam Chairman, far more conversation and interest, dare I say, in what wives and girlfriends were up to, or the celebrity status around the footballers rather than the football. And I think at this crucial time, the British public, and particularly the English public, feeling a connection with a young aspiring football team does mean that football has come home, and we can look forward to the domestic season starting in a few weeks' time, with spectators being allowed back into stadiums to enjoy the football experience, and we can look forward to great excitement to a World Cup less than a year away. And we approach that with a greater optimism than probably an England fan has ever had in the last 50 years. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Do any members wish to speak on this motion? And before you do, can I just remind you that speeches should relate strictly to the motion under discussion and be necessary for the progression of the debate, or to a point of order relating to procedure. I will curtail any excessive speeches that come along. So, Councillor Abbott.
Thank you very much. Well, Councillor Cunningham mentioned 10, 15 years ago. I can remember the World Cup in 1970. And
actually, my grandmother was in love with Alf Ramsey, so I can forgive her.
I can't remember 66. But I would say that this is the best England team since 1970, and that includes many long-suffering winter's evenings watching England fail to qualify for the World Cups. I watched every game of this championship, but I did bottle out. I must have take the coward's option when the penalties came around, because I did have a dreadful sinking feeling, which proved unfortunately correct. I'm happy to support the motion. The only thing I would wonder is it doesn't actually propose the council do anything, and I just wondered whether we should actually write to the England manager to express these views. Also, I would like to propose two minor textual amendments, because I don't think it means to say that we lifted the spurts of the country. And also the last word, I would imagine, should read young sportspersons plural. So I'd like to move those. So I think it should read spirits of the country and young sportspersons.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chairman, I'm happy to accept the textual amendments,
right,
and also the suggestion that you, on behalf of the council, write to express the views of this council should this motion be passed.
Yeah, great. Would anyone else like to say anything? Councillor Kilmartin.
Madam Chairman, I do remember 1966 World Cup final. And it was a very different kettle of fish and just as enjoyable. A lot of years have passed and I look back with fondness at the 1966 one, and I look back with really shock that we didn't get this one. But anyway, I'll support the motion.
Thank you. Anybody else? As the proposer of the motion, I'd like to invite Councillor Butland to reply to the speeches. No?
Nothing to write.
Nothing? Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Right, so the motion set out on page 6 of the agenda has been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands? All those in favour, please. Unanimous, thank you very much. We'll now deal with agenda item number 8, which is the second motion for this evening's meeting. Targets for tree planting and community woodlands in the Braintree district. A motion by Councillor James Abbott. Members, before inviting Councillor Abbott to present his motion, I can confirm that Councillor Abbott and Councillor Unsworth, the proposer and seconder of the original motion, are present and that this item may proceed. Members, you will be aware that the report circulated to all members in advance of this meeting that there has been an amendment to the motion as set out on pages 7 and 8 of the agenda. The amendment was proposed by Councillor Mrs Schmidt and seconded by Councillor Butland. I can confirm that Councillor Abbott and Councillor Unsworth, as the proposer and seconder of the original motion, have consented to the amendment, and therefore the amended motion, as set out in the separate report, is the substantive motion for debate this evening. For the avoidance of doubt, there is no need to debate and vote on the amendment. Councillor Abbott, please remain seated while you present and formally move the motion. Please may I remind you that before you speak to the motion, it must be seconded. Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Councillor Unsworth, you're recorded as the seconder of this motion. Please confirm that you second this motion, and do you wish to speak after Councillor Abbott's speech?
Yes, thank you. I'll second the motion and reserve my right to speak.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Unsworth. Members, the motion has been formally moved and seconded by Councillor Abbott and Councillor Unsworth. I will now invite Councillor Abbott to make his speech.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I think the key line in here is the second line, which says Council notes the multiple benefits of planting trees and public access woodlands, including improved health for the residents, habitat and species gain, improved air quality, reduced flooding and combating climate change. All of those things have been in the news recently. The very difficult time COVID has brought has also ironically emphasised the need people have for open spaces, green spaces, to try and recharge their batteries. And as we have seen in the news again, the impacts of climate change are growing in terms of flooding and increased temperatures. So there's lots of very good reasons why we should be doing this. Also, next year we have the Queen's Green Canopy project, which is an initiative created to mark Queen's Platinum Jubilee. And we have the Essex Forest Initiative, which is already underway by Essex County Council, which aims to plant 375,000 trees by 2024, with an ambition for 1 million trees by 2030. Now, the Essex Climate Action Commission, and as I've declared an interest I'm a member of, they launched their report very recently, and they said, and I quote, the main driver behind the initiative, the Essex Forest Initiative, is to lock up carbon and offset the carbon produced, which is contributing to ongoing climate change. Trees grow by absorbing carbon dioxide. Simple as that. They lock the carbon and therefore act in scientific terms as what's called a carbon sink, as opposed to a carbon source. The motion also notes that our neighbouring councils of Chelmsford and Colchester have set very substantial tree planting budgets, both of them 6-figure targets for tree planting within the next few years. Now, we have accepted the amendment, but we felt it would have been better and more ambitious to have had a stronger commitment to community woodlands as per the original motion. However, in the interest of progressing this motion, we accepted the amendment. I'd ask members to note that the motion doesn't actually specify a tree planting target. We could have put a number in there, but we didn't, because we think it'd be better for the Climate Working Group to look at that and to come back to Council. But clearly the context of what we're proposing is that we should have ambition. If the recommendation comes back to plant 74 trees, we're probably going to say that's not enough. in the context of Essex trying to plant 1 million. Just to flag that up. And it also sets out a process for doing this. There is what I would say, having followed this topic for decades, is now a diminishing group of people who would deny there's a species and climate emergency. This summer has seen the most extraordinary events globally. Canada breaking its national temperature record 3 times in successive days by a total of 5 degrees centigrade. That is extraordinary. Northern Ireland, nowhere near as hot, breaking its temperature record 3 times in a week. And of course, far more seriously, catastrophic and fatal floods in China and Germany and neighbouring countries. The UK has one of the lowest tree cover percentages in Europe. I think it's currently about 13%. And Essex is only half of that. We are one of the least treed parts of Europe here in Essex. So there are multiple reasons why I hope this council will support this motion tonight, and I hope it can be unanimous. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Unsworth.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd just also like to add to the flooding, the recent flooding that we've seen in London over the last few days on the underground. So obviously this is an important thing. And it's good to get final agreement that trees are important and are needed, despite the rejection of the climate change budget change that we put forward a few months ago. That was doable and within the new homes budget. Just to remind the council that we have an incinerator under construction and that we agreed to object to the environment permit for the incinerator. And to put the ambition that Mr. Councillor Abbott spoke about into perspective, it will take some 3 million trees to offset the 600,000 tonnes of CO2 that this incinerator will produce. These are simple facts for multiplying up the CO2. We've already heard that the tree captures CO2, so we've got some ambitious targets. I'll leave it there for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do any members wish to speak on the motion? And the same situation applies as last time. They should be related to the motion under discussion. Councillor Wendy Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As a lengthy discussion on tree planting was fully discussed on the 7th of June in the Community Woodland Scrutiny paper, I will not continue comment further. However, Her Majesty's Jubilee, for those who are not members in 2012, I would like to mention that for that Jubilee we offered a good size oak tree to every ward and parish, and 72 plus were planted. It is not easy to top such a forward-thinking project. However, needless to say, this is a matter that we have been looking into. We do not need to demonstrate ambition in this council. BDC has been planting trees, shrubs and bulbs since 2004. Unfortunately, as we were not aware that this would turn into something akin to a competition, we did not keep a tally. Although many of my cabinet reports to council contains information regarding tree planting projects. What I can tell you is that this year, at Horizon 120, 321 trees, several thousand shrubs and plants and wildflower meadows have been planted, and at neighbouring Gridserve, some 37 trees and many native shrubs and plants have been planted. Remember, the first trees of the Essex Forest Initiative were planted here in 2019. As for mentioning figures from other authorities, I know where these figures have come from, and the planting plans in some area are already being objected to by residents. We will not come up with numbers that in reality may not be possible to achieve, as we have so little space left. We will not mislead the public. We will be realistic. Because we have been so forward-thinking in tree planting, it appears to be being held against us. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Kilmartin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. A lot of trees are being pulled down in Witham on the Bellway development for Jimpson's site. Would BDC therefore be considering remedying this eventually? And we look forward to that. Thank you.
Councillor Parker.
And then Councillor Beavis.
Right. Councillor Beavis, Councillor Parker. Sorry?
Would you like?
I don't mind.
Yep. Councillor Beavis.
Excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chairman. And, I've listened really carefully to what Councillor Smith has just said, and I can't really disagree with it. But I do feel that we as a council could show a little bit more passion around this agenda. I mean, we're in a climate crisis globally, and in the Hedinghams we had a gentleman, he was called Dr. Ronnie Green. He's now sadly the late Dr. Ronnie Green, and he travelled the world as a global doctor, looking after some of the greatest VIPs in the world, and I had great privilege to spend a lot of time talking and working alongside Ronnie. And on his death, he left the community a piece of land called Molly's Wood. And I would go down also and help Ronnie to plant trees in the beautiful woodland in the middle of nowhere on the outskirts of Sybil Hedingham. But it's not just about trees. It's about the landscape. It's about the well-being of our residents. And in terms of Ronnie, he wanted it to be an area of conservation, and we had buses that would come along from all around the schools in this district, and they would come and count moths and lots of other conservation stuff that Ronnie was really interested in. And I think that this guy, who's no longer with us, has left us a legacy, and I feel we have almost a duty actually to pick up on pieces of work like this and support the group that is now Molly's Wood. I think there's a great opportunity here, and I think there's probably many other little woodlands around the district of a similar size and nature. And yes, I would like to see an oak planted there for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, but I'd like to see a lot more than that as well. I think it's such an opportunity, and I really do hope the council pick up on this and support this community group more. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. I'm very happy to support this motion as well. I think I'm sure that all councillors would support the concept of tree planting and woodland planting. But I would like to just acknowledge the efforts that so many individuals and actually farmers have made in this district to plant new trees, new hedges, new woodland. I'm seeing increasing numbers of new hedge planting. I've seen several new woods planted in my ward. I'm now also starting to see strips for wildflowers as well. So I do think generally amongst the residents of this district there is a huge desire to see more environmental improvements, and many residents have taken it upon themselves to take action to improve the environment and create greater, more habitat for wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Can I just assure Councillor Abbott, as the mover, that our amendments are not in any way intended to reduce our commitment to this project. If I can just explain briefly why we've amended it. The original motion talked about will include new community woodlands. Our amendment says may include where that is achievable. But the word community, I think, suggests that all these woodlands would be open to public access. Now, there may be some that will not be accessible due to where they are, and also I would not rule out some of these trees being planted on private land. The important thing, I think, Madam Chairman, is that we want to increase the number of trees and the number of woodlands. If some of them are community woodlands, then so much the better. And the second amendment was to take out the words "to be later ratified by full council." This would be the recommendations from the Climate Change Working Group on the targets. That's not to do away with targets, but it must remain this council that makes decisions, and therefore the council will consider the recommendations. It would be inappropriate for a non-elected body. I mean, if they came up and said, "We want you to plant 5 million," we couldn't just ratify. So those are the only ways of doing it, not in any way to do it, to water it down. Councillor Abbott talked about the Essex Forest Initiative, and as I've already declared an interest, that has been a great success. The first year, the target was to plant 25,000 trees. In fact, at the end of the 2021 planting season, 38,615 trees have been planted in the county. And in the current planting season, 21-22, we hope to exceed, or Essex County Council hopes to exceed 50,000 on that. I think the important thing is for all local authorities to work together, make sure we're not double counting as well, to increase the tree coverage across Essex. As Councillor Abbott quite rightly says, we have a long way to go to make Essex as tree covered as he and I would like. So I just want to give that assurance that in accepting the amendment, no way does it diminish it. I think we should have targets, and I look forward to recommendations coming from the Climate Change Working Group for us to consider. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Nobody else? Councillor Unsworth, you have not spoken in the debate. Did you want to say something?
At the start.
Sorry?
Chairman, he spoke at the start of the debate.
I thought he spoke again later as well. Okay, sorry. I apologise. As the proposer of the motion, I would like to invite Councillor Abbott to reply to the speeches.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you for everyone for your contributions. I accept the point Councillor Butler makes in the amendment about the last line and the difference between ratification. Yes, that could have been better put. Still have concerns though about community woodlands, and if you read the original motion and the amended, there's no mutual exclusivity between having targets and also wanting to plant community woodlands. So it can include both, planting on private land and having public land. It doesn't specify that it has to be. But community woodlands are, yes, by definition, public access. But I just wanted to make that clear. I thought the point made by Councillor Kilmartin was very important. For every tree we're planting, I don't know the exact numbers, we're losing another one. For every 10, we're losing 6, whatever. We're losing trees very, very fast. Our planning committee, only last week, again, a site where there was only one tree inside the site, and that was to be saved, but over half the trees around the periphery coming out for a development, and that's happening on site after site after site. We're losing hundreds of thousands of trees and lengths of hedgerows on development sites. So we're running to catch up. We're running to replace those that we're already losing. Councillor Schmidt, with respect, always seems to be rather defensive on these issues. We're not saying that the things the council have done are bad today. They're not. They're very good. What we're doing is looking to the future. That the climate response we need to be making as an authority for the future. And it's certainly not a competition, as she said, with other authorities. Absolutely not. I think Councillor Butland put it very well when he said this is about councils and authorities working together to achieve these much greater aims. And I don't think it's unrealistic to say we should aim for these things. It is now about 30 years since the James Cook wood was planted outside Witton, which I had a small hand in helping to find the land for. Was there with my children when they were very small, helping to volunteer with many other people to plant the trees. Land can be found to do these things. It's not that difficult. And so I hope all members will support this motion. It doesn't, as I say, actually set a numerical target. It invites the council through its various processes to come up with a numerical target. It doesn't set a target against community woodlands. They're both possible. They're not mutually exclusive. And as I've already set out, there are multiple reasons why we should be doing this and why we should be being ambitious. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Members, the motion set out on pages 7 and 8 of the agenda has been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please indicate. Unanimous, thank you. Thank you, members. We will now deal with agenda item number 9, which is the third motion for this evening's meeting. Agenda item number 9 is supporting businesses and jobs through the pandemic. The motion is set out on pages 9 and 10 of the agenda. Before inviting Councillor Tom Cunningham to set out his motion, I can confirm that no amendments have been received and the motion remains as published in the agenda. As Councillor Tom Cunningham and Councillor Bowers, the proposer and seconder of the motion, are present, this item may proceed. Councillor Cunningham, please remain seated while you present and formally move your motion. Please, can I remind you before that you make your speech that the motion must be seconded.
Sorry, Madam Chair, would you like Councillor Bowers to second that now, or before I start?
Whenever. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have great pleasure in introducing this motion. Since the first quarter of 2020, we've all lived through unprecedented times, a human tragedy impacting on all with a devastating impact on the economy and communities. We have spoken before about how communities have responded with such resilience and spirit, supported by all levels of government. Now I think it's time to reflect on the support given to businesses and how we rebuild our economy better and stronger. Before the pandemic, the ambition for North Essex was to make a great productivity switch from a local economy with low unemployment, but with too high a percentage of workers in low-paid, low-skilled jobs, making that switch to a higher average take-home pay with more jobs in higher skilled industries, leading to an increase in local productivity. As we look to bounce back better, these priorities will remain the same, but the way in which we achieve this may be different. I think we all agree that keeping people working is key to keeping people healthy and secure. Entrenched multi-generation unemployment and welfare dependency erodes the very fabric of our society. The government support has been unprecedented and has been instrumental in keeping the private sector afloat, allowing companies to function and be able to produce goods and services to meet a pent-up consumer demand as consumer confidence returns. Despite this help, many companies and their staff have had to make tremendous sacrifices in order to ensure better days will lie ahead, and we acknowledge that as we look forward with some optimism. Without doubt, the cruelest impact of the pandemic has been felt by the younger generation, and whilst apprenticeships are for all ages, it has been enormously encouraging that such a commitment to apprenticeships has been enabled by the government, allied to the Kickstart scheme. We also have acknowledged the great opportunity presented to economic renewal by the Green Agenda, and it is encouraging to hear the government's support for the motor industry in this country and the production of more electric vehicles, the government's own commitment to using electric vehicles, and the messages coming from the Secretary of State for International Trade, Liz Truss, who has identified the opportunity to export green knowledge and green skills to the rest of the world, creating jobs in the UK. We will need to hear considerably more about this in the months ahead from central government, and it's, I think, our express hope that we do hear that. The motion reflects on the work of local government in supporting businesses now and in the future, and as Essex County Council Deputy Cabinet Member for Economic Renewal, I'm very pleased that the County Council has committed a £5 million boost to the Business Adaptations Grant Scheme. That's very important. But I would particularly, here in Braintree, like to acknowledge once again the tremendous work of our officers locally in the Braintree district. And Madam Chairman, it seems particularly appropriate that both the Head of Service for Economic Development and Finance are here with us this evening, because it's been their teams, often they're quite small teams, who have done such a fantastic job. They're presided over the distribution of grants and supports, often in very difficult circumstances, appreciating the understandable anxiety and concerns of businesses and residents against a backdrop of ever-changing guidelines and advice. We continue to receive unprompted praise for the speed and intention received by residents from our superb team who have worked on this. They have been and remain exceptional. They are a credit to the authority, and we are hugely grateful. And I'm sure I speak on behalf of all member colleagues when I say it's with great pride and privilege that we are associated with them. Therefore, Madam Chairman, I move the motion on page 19 of the agenda this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bowers, you are recorded as the seconder of this motion. Do you wish to speak? Later on. Okay. Members, the motion has been formally moved and seconded by Councillor Cunningham and Councillor Bowers. Well done. Sorry. Do any members wish to speak on the motion? Please can I remind you that it's exactly the same stipulations as we had before.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm very happy to support the motion. I would also like to add the Council own initiatives have helped small businesses and those who have wanted to start new businesses in the district. The free funding for young entrepreneurs. The Young Entrepreneur Scheme was set up to support these in the age of 16 and 30 age group to use their talents for enterprise grants between 500 and 3,000 were available to support with startup costs such as training, stock and digital equipment. The good part of the scheme was and still is there is no previous experience needed by the young entrepreneurs. As long as they have an idea, they believe on it, they can apply for the grant. It's a four-step easy program, which enables young individuals to submit an idea, participate in a training workshop, create their business plan, and make a presentation. There have been great examples where this initiative has helped, such as Leila Hubbard from Silverend, who used a grant from the council to launch an Inspire UK program, a new business which promotes physical and mental well-being. The council other initiatives including digital marketing support to help businesses adopt to COVID restrictions and grants for improvement to business sites. To help improve the appearance of premises have all been well received by the local businesses. During the pandemic, officers worked side by side with the local businesses to help them receive grants, appropriate grants, to survive and sustain their businesses during these tough times. And the council has still doing adequate work with the local businesses to support their sustainability for coming future. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Raymond. Councillor Kinsman. Richard. Sorry.
Madam Chairman, I'll let you off, that's fine.
We haven't got keys.
I'd like to thank Councillor Cunningham for putting this motion forward tonight. I'm really excited to talk to this one. I was delighted as a Cabinet Support member to be given the opportunity with other Cabinet members to visit Horizon 120 site on the 16th of July, which was a lovely Friday morning. We were in the knowledgeable hands of our friends at Balfour BT on a tour of what they've achieved so far. The sheer scale of the site, to be honest with you, brought home to me what this site can bring to the residents of Braintree and the district in the future. it's got really impressive commercial and job creation credentials. They're absolutely evident as soon as you're on the site, given how little is actually already up there in terms of building infrastructure as well. It's also quite inspirational and really gives you a vision of what is to come, and also backed by incredibly strong environmental elements. And all of this has been progressed during the pandemic. And to see what's already been achieved, it is truly awe-inspiring. There are going to be a clear number of differing quality workplaces that are going to be joining the site to create sustainable, well-planned and environmentally sound area, and the jobs are going to be similarly diverse. I'm still in shock at the attenuation pond, which turns out to be a lake, by the way, and is already thriving with activity as nature has quickly found a favourable home. As Councillor Smith touched on earlier, a huge number of trees, along with shrubs, grasslands and wildflower meadows are already in full bloom. And even the roadsides, they contain green buffers for pedestrians and are already well planted. This is a commercial space of the future as far as I'm concerned, and I cannot wait for fellow residents of Braintree to visit, work and generally enjoy everything that Horizon 120 I'm sure will have to offer. This council and officer should be immensely proud of what is flourishing here, and the Conservative administration have proved themselves to be a worthy custodians of both commercial opportunity and environmentally balanced development. Why have one when you can have both? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I'll support this motion. I'm not going to say an awful lot, but I think it does have to be recognised that the government support for businesses and jobs through the pandemic has been absolutely extraordinary. As a what I call a third-rate student of economics, that the amount of money that has had to be spent and borrowed to keep the economy going has been absolutely extraordinary, eye-watering numbers. So there's no doubt about that commitment. On the Horizon 120, I was on the working group for that, and I hope I had a little bit of influence over trying to push for green credentials. But I think for me the jury's still out. Let's see what it looks like when it's completed. The only other point I'd make is really the same as I made with the other Conservative motion, is there doesn't really appear to be any action associated with the motion. You know, are we going to write to anyone? Are we going to sort of propose anything that we're actually going to do? I don't know that we have to do that, and it might be regarded as unnecessary, but I thought I'd mention that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Councillor Wrench.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd just like to point out that over many years, Braintree District Council has had excellent levels of engagement with the business community, either directly through our own initiatives or through our membership as one of the partners of the Haven Gateway Partnership, and as a result of the leader sitting as a District Councillor representative on the South East Local Enterprise Partnership. We have an understanding of the needs of companies in industries with growth potential and its importance that the private sector continues to work with the public sector and our education establishments to ensure our area is best placed to address the skills needs of employers. This approach was clearly shown as working prior to the pandemic and is going to be massively important as we head towards what we hope will be a period of energetic and fast-moving economic recovery. We have some excellent projects, one of which Councillor Pritchard has just described being delivered within the district. Locally, Braintree District Council continues to work with Essex County Council through the North Essex Economic Board, and the sector analysis work Essex County Council are undertaking is helping identify the industries where new jobs can be created. We must play our part in ensuring a hard-working local workforce can be upskilled to grasp these opportunities and build a better future for themselves. That is why Braintree District Council is updating its economic plan for growth and recovery and will be refreshing its own approach to supporting the skills agenda ready for the autumn. We We will also be wanting to ensure we continue to support career advice and guidance, an area of support given at the ages of 14, 16 and 18 years old that will give our next generations and ensure that they're able to thrive in the future. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wrench. Councillor Beavis.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I will be supporting the motion. I just wanted to mention two items, if I may, in terms of the residents from the north of the Braintree district. The first one is congestion, and that congestion invariably starts at Foley Corner if you're coming from a Houstead or Headingham direction. And getting into Braintree at times can just take an extra hour if you're coming from the north. And I think it's something that the district really does need to work on, because as the number of houses have grown, particularly in Houstead, that congestion 7 days a week is getting worse. And secondly, I just wanted to talk about transport for our younger people. And I'd like to give an example of a group of young girls who live in Houstead, have got really good grades and been accepted into Harlow College at Stansted, our biggest employer in the district. Harlow College does not start until 9 o'clock in the morning. The students have to get a bus, if they're lucky, or family transport into Braintree, and then get the bus from Braintree to Stansted, which invariably gets them there at 7:30 in the morning, when college doesn't start till 9, with a similar trip coming back. And regrettably, but understandably, I can understand why some young kids in the north of the district, quite frankly, give up and look for something else. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Beavis. Councillor Swear.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, I'd just like to praise our officers as well as our government in supporting our businesses locally. I'd particularly like to mention the Enterprise Centre because I think this is a state-of-the-art energy efficient complex which is going to support our businesses very well in the future. They are fully serviced and with some training facilities. I can see that this is going to become even more important going forward, because it will have some agility and ability to respond to the various needs of businesses throughout Braintree District, but also from those other businesses that want to come into and are attracted to Braintree. Also, I think we're very fortunate in having iConstruct, which again is going to make a massive difference, I think, to the way in the future that we look at construction and the construction industry. And as we know, this part of Essex is going to have its fair amount of building with regards to housing in the future. And I think this innovative approach and support in development of new goods and services, and also potentially launching of new goods in Braintree within the construction industry, the fact that we're going to have cooperation with excellent universities as well, will heed well for the whole purpose of driving forward a lot of these green growths and green skills in the construction going forward. And I think this is going to be very important, because we need to increase the skills of the business opportunities in Braintree and Essex so that we can build back better, and I will support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Swear. Councillor Hensman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Being a member who represents a town centre, it was great to see hospitality able to reopen in time to host fans, spoilt only by the one or two who had their own agenda. I have to say, we went home gracefully early, never having had such a nail-biting ending in our history. The less said about our participation, the better. I'm just pleased that we actually qualified. Congratulazioni Italia. Back to this motion. I believe that the key to local economic renewal and helping to revive our area is ensuring our town centres bounce back from the challenging times they've faced, not just recently, but during the first part of this century. Traditional retail has therefore already been on a noticeable decline, particularly with the rapid rise of online convenience. It's this which has been accelerated by the recent pandemic. Town centres need to refocus in order to remain viable. Therefore, the long-awaited pedestrianisation project in Braintree not only fixes the defects of the High Street previously let down by the County Council, but also creates a new space for events, markets and cafe culture. This will make our town more desirable as a destination, as well as a place where key services are accessed. We therefore look forward to this being completed next month, in plenty of time to welcome back Councillor Claus. The Victoria Square development, a mixed-use scheme supporting tourism, transport, health and homes, is a commitment on Braintree District Council's land to renewing the town and will play a major role in supporting economic recovery. As part of this, I also welcome the creation of the new public conveniences, thus retaining such a vital facility, which will also play a key role, albeit a silent one, in adding to the destination Braintree we all look forward to, and I truly believe that it was well worth the wait once it's all complete. I therefore also support this motion. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hensman. Councillor Mary Cunningham.
I thoroughly support this motion. As an employer, our company was very fortunate to be able to carry out a considerable amount of work throughout the pandemic, and we were able to continue without any need for business support grants. However, for a short period, when an area of our business was unable to operate because of a lockdown, we were very grateful to be able to use the government's job retention scheme to furlough a couple of key employees for a short period. This rescue package has been crucial in keeping smaller businesses afloat and prevent a steeper rise in unemployment, and it has enabled workers to remain on the payroll whilst on leave. The flexibility of the scheme has given businesses the opportunity to furlough employees for any amount of time and any work pattern, and by doing this, employers have been able to safeguard jobs as they work through the pandemic recovery, and it's enabling businesses to grow beyond COVID and build back better, which is absolutely paramount. I have huge support for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Kilmartin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. There are renovation plans for Witham, especially in Newland Street, and I'm sure we're all getting very excited about it, and I wonder if you have any news on when this will start. Please, Councillor Cunningham. I shall support the motion. Thank you.
I'm very happy to support this motion and obviously second it. One of the key impacts over the last 12 to 16 months, as well as the health of our residents, has been what it has meant to local businesses and livelihoods. This has been an ever-moving piece, though I'm proud to say that every stage our government, nationally and locally, has stepped up to that challenge and looked to support. Alongside this, there are still several projects locally that have been progressing well to provide long-term stability, which, as well as projects such as the Victoria Square development in Braintree Town, Horizon 120 Enterprise Centre and iConstruct, is also good to see that progress is being made on a long-awaited Enterprise Centre in Witham. I can assure you that these are very much key to the future of our district regarding prosperity and jobs, and something that we are passionate about making happen. Also, we're looking forward to working together with Essex County Council in any way we can for the benefit of our residents, which I'm sure can only assist in helping safeguard future job prospects for all, as well as supporting the skills agenda that Councillor Wrench did refer to earlier, and we all feel very passionate about making this happen, whether that is for the young or for adult learning. This motion brings together what is good and has been provided over the last year or more, and is definitely something I believe we should all be supporting tonight. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. As the proposer of the motion, I would like to invite Councillor Cunningham to reply to the speeches.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. If that's all,
seems to be
excellent. No, thank you, Art. I'll happily sort of draw things to a close and thank colleagues very much indeed for a really good conversation and a really good debate. With some very, very good points made throughout. First of all, I'd just like to thank Councillor Raymond for his speech. Supporting the youngsters through this economic crisis remains a key priority, and I'm grateful for his acknowledgement of the initiatives we've taken so far. Councillor Pritchard referring to perhaps a jewel in our crown a little bit in terms of our response to these matters, Horizon 120, and he rightly made the point not only about the landscaping, but the overall ambition for the site. It would have been the easiest decision possible for this authority to make, having made a very astute acquisition of the land adjacent to the A131 to turn it into one of the fastest developed logistics centres in the east of England. It would have meant lucrative capital returns at pace to the council, yet I think it would have undermined our overall economic development objectives for this part of the world and the high ambition we have for the district and its residents. I thank Councillor Abbott for his comments, and in terms of how we follow up from this, I hope he'll get some comfort from the responses from both Councillor Wrench and Councillor Bowers when talking about the action plan and the review of our economic strategy that's taking place at the moment over the summer. Colleagues will be able to hear a little bit more about this actually at the members' evening on the 29th next week. But we're taking a moment to pause, refresh, look at what we can do, how we can best support this agenda going forward, and hopefully Councillor Abbott will see and hear some very useful actions to take that forward. I thank Councillor Wrench for his comments about business engagement and the wider skills agenda. We did start from a high watermark in terms of our engagement with the business community. If there is a positive coming out of this crisis, is that local government is more connected, closer to the business community than it has ever been, and that in itself is a positive. I thank Councillor Bevis for her comments. She's absolutely right to make the point. Whilst we encourage us to talk about sustainable transport infrastructure, we talk about a skills deficit, we also have to establish and appreciate that there is still a traditional infrastructure deficit in these parts of Essex, and they remain vital to unlocking the potential of the local economy. So her comments regarding the particular congestion are noted. In response to her points about access to Harlow College and Stansted Airport College, as our refresh of our economic prospectus moves apace, we will be starting, as the airport starts to get back on its feet, our engagement with the airport. And this is something Councillor Bowers and Councillor Wrench will be working on through the Skills Board, and I think it's been incumbent upon us to look to see how we can work with Stansted to address some of those transport issues. We're very fortunate not only to have Stansted Airport in our locality, but the fact that Stansted Airport is owned by Manchester Airport Group, the fact they worked with partners to bring forward the college at Stansted, the skills, the knowledge, the development of individuals for this industry will not only help the airport bounce back and provide some great opportunities for our youngsters, and we must play our part in that as well. Councillor Swear mentioned iConstruct, which was a bold investment a few years ago, and I think he will agree that as the months and the years pan out, it will prove to be a shrewd investment and play a major role. And the Enterprise Centre was an excellent piece of work carried out by officers of this authority working with ECC and the LEP at the most difficult of times to grasp the opportunity to deliver a shovel-ready scheme using government Get Building Fund money. We managed to lever in £7 million worth of government investment to the Braintree District quickly. That's an extraordinary achievement. It still remains disappointing that that didn't have unanimous political support in the council chamber, but hopefully that itself will come. Thank you to Councillor Hensman for mentioning our work in Braintree Town Centre, considerable investment, not only, and also for his, I'm sure it's appreciated, his nod to Anglo-Italian relations in recent weeks, which I'm sure will be appreciated, but he made some very serious points, and yes, we look forward to pedestrianisation being completed. We look forward to Victoria Square being completed in the coming months as well. I thank Councillor Mrs Cunningham not only for her insight, which I benefit hugely from in relation to her work in business, and I have done for quite some time, but she quite rightly identified the meaningful support to small businesses that has been received from government. In response to Councillor Mrs Kilmartin, our improvements to Witham and Halstead remain a key priority. I'm confident colleagues will start to see some movement soon, and we'll look forward to updating colleagues hopefully in the next few weeks. And I thank Councillor Bowers for highlighting our commitment to Witham Enterprise Centre, which was a manifesto commitment and we're determined to get on with. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Members, the motion set out on pages 9 and 10 of the agenda has been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please indicate. Yeah, unanimous. Thank you, members. We'll now deal with agenda item number 10, Coggeshall Neighbourhood Plan adoption. This item is set out on pages 11 to 16 of the agenda. Please can I invite Councillor Mrs Spray, the Cabinet Member for Planning and Infrastructure, to introduce the report and move the recommendation. Please can I remind you that before you make your speech and your recommendation, it must be seconded.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The recommendation, members, is set out on page 11 of the agenda, that the decision statement attached at Appendix 1 is approved and the Coggeshall Neighbourhood Plan is made under Section 38A(4) of the 2004 Act. Thank you. I so move.
Councillor Spray has moved the recommendation set out on page 11 of the agenda. Please can I have a seconder? Councillor Mrs Parker. Did you wish to reserve your right to speak? Okay. I would now invite Councillor Mrs Spray to speak on this matter.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good evening, members. I'm very pleased to present to you this evening the Coggeshall Neighbourhood Plan for approval. The neighbourhood area was designated on 14th of August 2015, and I'd like to start by thanking the Coggeshall Neighbourhood Plan Subcommittee for all the work that they and other local volunteers have put into producing this plan. As others have discovered, and are continuing to do so, the production of a neighbourhood plan is no mean feat. It requires a good deal of background work, investigation, surveys of residents and collation of evidence. I have a hard copy of the plan here with me this evening. It's an excellent document and an interesting read, and I recommend it. Coggeshall, as I'm sure members are aware, is one of the district's most historically important villages, with over 200 listed buildings. 200 members, that's a significant number, including 8 Grade 1 and 17 Grade 2 listed properties. To quote from the plan, the quality of the buildings and the concentration of medieval properties in the centre has left the street pattern largely undisturbed, making Coggeshall a fine example of a medieval village. This plan seeks to protect this historic heritage. The Coggeshall Neighbourhood Plan Subcommittee worked with the Parish Council and with BDC to ensure that the plan meets current government guidance and the policies being developed by BDC in our emerging local plan. For now, I'll only mention one particular policy, which is policy number 6. This seeks to protect and enhance the green and blue infrastructure and the natural environment. I won't go into a lot of detail because members can read it for themselves, but there is a great deal of detail in there about biodiversity, protecting wildlife habitats and corridors within the parish, and tree, shrub and meadow planting, all things which this council is keen to see happening and subjects which are particularly dear to the heart of my Cabinet colleague, Councillor Schmidt. The result of the referendum on the neighbourhood plan, which took place on the 6th of May 2021, was pretty conclusive. 1,507 votes were cast in favour, that's 89.64%,
and 174 votes, 10.35%, were against. There is, members, a slight typo in the referendum question, which some of you may have noticed in the agenda. An additional word for has slipped in there, and I just thought for clarity I would mention that. But I thoroughly recommend this neighbourhood plan and ask you to approve the recommendation as already detailed and set out on page 11 of your agenda. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Spray. Do any members wish to speak on this item? Councillor Unsworth.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As the ward member, I would like to take this opportunity to thank some very specific people on this. Councillor Tom Walsh, who can't be here tonight, was a member of it and was instrumental. I'd also like to thank Peter Cohn and Alex Stevenson, the leaders of the Cultural Neighbourhood Plan and the others of the team. We now have a plan that protects the village with allocated sites, and the planning protection that affords, as Councillor Spray has already said, protecting green and open spaces. A design guide that goes with that is also instrumental, and I'd like to give you a quick example of that. We have a development known as the Dutch Nursery, or the Higgins site, on the way into Coggeshall on West Street as you approach the village. The neighbourhood plan worked extremely hard with this developer, and the developer was very, very receptive to what was going on with the neighbourhood plan. As you will now see, I don't know if anybody's had the opportunity to come into the village through the street. It actually looks like part of the village. It has been done in such a way that it complements the village nicely, and it represents the facade and the sort of demeanour of the village. As I said, we've got 200 buildings in the village, and it has been particularly difficult for the neighbourhood plan to find allocated space and allocated sites. And as we've said, we're a key services village. It is a difficult place to park cars and to move through because the streets are narrow and everything else. And I'm really pleased that we've now got a neighbourhood plan in place and fully support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Unsworth. Councillor Parker.
And yes, I too would like to congratulate the people of Coggeshall for all their hard work that's gone together, gone to putting together this plan. I'm sure it is quite an undertaking, as Councillor Spray has said, and congratulations to them for all the hard work and what they've achieved. We're already starting to see neighbourhood plans appear on planning committee agendas, and they really are starting to shape how development takes place in those neighbourhoods. And I would look forward to seeing this plan appear in any applications concerning Coggeshall. And once again, congratulations, Coggeshall.
No? Councillor Mrs. Spray, as the proposer of the recommendation, would you like to reply to the speeches? No?
Thank you, Chairman. That's fine.
Okay. Yes. So can I have a show of hands for anyone in favour of this? Unanimous, thank you very much. Thank you, members. We'll now deal with item number 11, the revised Horizon 120 Local Development Order, LDO, and Design Code and proposed wayfaring strategy. Members, this item is set out on pages 17 to 50 of the agenda. Please can I invite Councillor Mrs. Spray, the Cabinet Member for Planning and Infrastructure, to introduce the report and move the recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, members, I'm pleased to set out the recommendations which are on page 17 of your agenda. It is recommended that full council approve the revised LDO and design code and the proposed wayfinding strategy for Horizon 120, and subject to the approval of the above recommendation, that the existing LDO and design code in place for the Horizon 120 site is revoked. I so move. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs Spray has moved the recommendations as set out on page 17 of the agenda. Please can I have a seconder? Councillor Wrench. Do you wish to reserve your right to speak?
Yes, I reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. I would now like to invite Councillor Spray to speak on this matter.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members, this paper is to seek approval for some revisions to the existing LDO for the Horizon 120 site. In accordance with the process, the application did come to Planning Committee last week on Tuesday the 20th and was approved. I think it was unanimous. The amendments are listed on pages 19 and 20 of your agenda, and I don't propose to read them out. They are largely minor and technical, but I'm just going to cover off three of the more significant changes, but only in brief because they are detailed in the report. The first is the use class changes. This follows on from the government's amendments to the Town and Country Planning Order 1987, which came into force on the 1st of September last year, and this allows more flexible use of buildings, particularly on high streets and in town centres. This means that the LDO has been updated accordingly to comply with current legislation. The floor space cap. The original LDO restricted gross internal floor area to not exceed 65,000 square metres. The amendment seeks to increase the floor space from that cap to 75,000 square metres. Now, I know this has raised some concerns in places, but I just want to clarify, this amendment does not mean that the size of the buildings is going to increase. What it does do is to allow for additional storage space within a building should it be needed by an operator, for example on a short-term basis while they move additional stock in and out, and that might only be for a few days. But the feedback that we received was that the original cap was a concern to some operators and potentially a bar to them coming onto the Horizon 120 site. So this amendment should solve that problem. But to reassure everyone, we will not be looking at massive warehouse-style buildings on the site. That was never the intention. And finally, the wayfinding strategy. This, in simple terms, is signage, public art and furniture and exercise equipment. And I don't think I can put it better than the wording in point 3.22. The wayfinding strategy sets out the aspirations for the site to enhance and reflect the ethos that underpins Horizon 120 as a natural, healthy and innovative business park. Members, this is a flagship site for this district, and we want to ensure consistency and high quality throughout. I just do need to add one thing, which is that since the publication of the agenda for this meeting of Council, we have received a late response from the Council's Historic Buildings consultant, who raised no objections to the proposed LDO or the accompanying design code. That was not in time for the agenda being published. One other point I want to mention is the introduction of the electric minibuses, the depot for which will be in Zone C. I think this is a great addition. They're going to move quietly and efficiently around, and of course the GridServe site is right next door, so charging them isn't going to be a problem. Some of us made an escorted visit to Horizon 120 a week ago last Friday. I have a few comments to make on that, but Councillor Pritchard has actually pinched my wording on that, which I'm very happy that he did. The building of the Enterprise Centre is coming along apace. It's really impressive, and the landscaping, in particular the pond, and actually he's quite right, calling it a pond doesn't do it justice, and the tree planting is absolutely brilliant. So very happy to move the recommendations which I've already done, as set out on page 17, and happy to take any comments from members. Thank you.
Do any members wish to speak on this item? Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, this came to planning committee recently, and I'll make the same comments as I did there, plus a couple more. I think we do have to bear in mind that there are concerns about Horizon 120. If you look in detail at what the nearest parish councils are saying, it's not unalloyed support for everything that they're obviously it's happening, but there are many things they want to keep an eye on. Particularly, they're concerned about past tree losses to make the access, and obviously planting new trees is a big benefit in balancing them out. They're concerned about light pollution, and it's good to see. Well, at least I haven't been to see them yet, but it's good at night. But it's good to see in the press release material that went out that the lights that are going in are environmentally friendly. On that point, I'll make the same point as I did at planning committee, which was about what the police had to say about lighting, particularly their comments about bollards. And I'd have to say their comments were along the same lines as that word. They clearly don't seem to have much of a feel for the need to balance lighting with environmental impacts, and a number of things they said about bats were just completely wrong. There's one typo in the report I saw. It refers to a species of plant called Rusa rugosa. It should be Rosa rugosa, R-O-S-A. But the main point I wanted to make is that, again, if you look in detail at the report, the concern I've got is the County Council's enumeration of the increase of traffic from, I think it's from a combination of the use class changes and the floor space changes. Now, it's really good to see, the electric vehicles that are going to be on the site, and obviously we've got GridServe as well. But I think going forward, that is going to be a major concern for local communities, is what are the traffic generating potential for this site. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Abbott. Councillor Butland and Councillor Cunningham would like to make a late declaration.
Yes, Madam Chairman. Both Councillor Cunningham, Councillor Ritchie and myself are members of Great Notley Parish Council, which is the parish in which this is.
Right.
Didn't declare it, but Councillor Abbott has just made that. Could I abuse the position and just say the actual concern of the parish council relating to the removal of hedges related to the GridServe's part of the thing, not Horizon 120. Actually, the parish council is very happy with the way in which things have developed. But declare the interest as the three of us are members of the parish council.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to speak? No? Councillor Wrench? Right. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Ricky?
Just to add to what Councillor Spray said, the connectivity of the electric minibuses between key points within the Braintree district, I think, are going to be really advantageous in allowing not just business to kind of flow between key points, but also people. Just to add to a point around some of the offsets for the site is that we're looking to provide allotment area for the parish of Great Notley as part of the work that Horizon 120 is delivering to. So additional benefits for the environment and the parish. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Nobody else? Councillor Mrs. Spray, as the proposer of the recommendations, would you like to reply to the speeches? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just briefly, thank colleagues for their support for this. In response to Councillor Abbott, yes, I note the typo with the plant. Rosa noted that. The comments by the police, yes, this did bring this up at planning committee, and I think actually members of the committee agreed that some of the comments were misplaced, if I put it that way, and I don't think many of their concerns will be realised. Trees, loss of trees, yes, there has been some loss of trees, but the planting on the site is tremendous. And actually, when he does visit the site, he will see, I think, and be pleased to see the efforts that have been gone to with planting plants, hedgerows, trees. It really is superb in my opinion. And finally, on the traffic comments and the impact on local roads, concerns expressed by local people, well, I think we'll see as the site gets up and running. Obviously, at the moment it is still under construction. You know, I think we will see what the impact is, but considerable measures have been put in place, and it has been designed in order to lessen the impact of traffic locally, and I'm confident that will be the case. I think that's all from me, Chairman, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spray. Thank you, members. The recommendations set out on page 17 of the agenda have been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item number 12, changes to the Appointments Committee. Members, this item is set out on pages 51 to 54. Can I please invite Councillor Graham Butland, Leader of the Council, to introduce the report and move the recommendations. Can I remind you that your recommendations need to be seconded?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I will move the recommendations.
And I'm happy to second, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, the Council is required under its constitution to have an appointments committee to recruit its statutory and senior officers. In the constitution, the appointment of that committee, or the construction of that committee, is defined as at least 3 people, namely the Leader of the Council, a Cabinet member, and the Chairman of the Performance Management Scrutiny Committee. As far as I can recall, this Council has always wanted to be inclusive of all groups on the Council, particularly of the leading opposition group, in the appointment of officers. I think that's good, and I think it is also something which is also works well from the point of view of candidates who have the opportunity not only of seeing the administration members but also the opposition members, and also to feel that hopefully they are all working for the common good. We last appointed that committee in October 2019 for and I forget which post it was, but it was to make a particular appointment. And the 3 cabinet members, named Councillor Cunningham, Spray and McKee, and at that time also both the Green and Independent Group and the Helston Residents Association were represented on that committee. As a result, so there are 2 things now which I'm proposing. One, that there should be 3 cabinet members, but not specifically named, so that the most appropriate cabinet members can be selected depending on the vacancy that is being interviewed for. And secondly, through changes in other circumstances, there is, in paragraph 3.5, no representation of the official opposition, and for the first time, and it wasn't intended to be this way, the Leader of the Opposition is not a member of the Appointments Committee. That, I think, is something which we should rectify. It wasn't intended not to be the situation. And so therefore in 3.7 we're recommending that the Appointments Committee would consist of the Leader, 3 Cabinet members, the Leader of the Opposition, and the Chairman of the Performance Management Scrutiny Committee. That, I think, Madam Chairman, gives a committee of 6, which I think is about the maximum one wants to confront any candidate with in an interview situation, but also means that all aspects of the council are represented at that stage. So I so move, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Do any members wish to speak on this item? Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, we support the change. The only points, 3 points I wanted to make really are the text doesn't quite set out as clearly as Councillor Butland did the rationale, but hey ho, we know what it is now. The second thing is we have good group relations at the moment, group leader relations, but I felt on this occasion the communication wasn't as good perhaps as it might have been as to what the changes were intended. And the third point is, of the committee, 3 are named and 3 are not named. Should we be considering substitutes in the case of any of the, particularly the 3 named councillors, whether they can't attend a given appointments committee? Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak? No? Councillor Cunningham? Oh, Councillor Ainsworth.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Just following on from that, I wonder if, in the same spirit as unidentified cabinet members, it would be a member of the opposition, so that we can select somebody who's appropriate for that particular post that they're actually interviewing for, based on the experience and knowledge of the individual members of the group. Thank you.
Nobody else? Councillor Cunningham, do you want to speak at all?
Nothing to add.
No? Do you want to reply, Councillor Butland, to any of the speeches?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think the proposals put in 3.7 are quite clear. If by any chance a member was not able, any of the named members were not able to participate, then clearly I would, assuming it wasn't me who wasn't able to participate, be quite happy to enter into discussions as to whether a substitute would be appropriate, etc. But I would hope that the Leader of the Opposition and the Chairman of Performance Management, both of whom occupy recognised positions in the Council, along with the Leader and the Cabinet members, would, except in very exceptional circumstances, would comprise the composition, would be the composition of that committee.
Thank you. Thank you, members. The recommendations are set out on page 51 of the agenda, have been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please indicate. Unanimous, thank you. We will now deal with agenda item number 13, Cabinet Report to Full Council. Before opening this item, please can I remind members that following our adoption of the new constitution, the council procedural rules for this item have been changed. During this session, each member may put up to 2 questions to the cabinet, which will be responded to by the leader or the relevant cabinet member. Councillor Abbott, as the leader of the opposition, may put up to 4 questions to cabinet. Members may not ask supplementary questions. Questions should relate to the functions of the leader or a cabinet member, the powers and duty of the council, or matters pertaining to the district. No statements may be made by councillors during this session. Where a response cannot be given during the meeting, a written answer will be issued within 10 working days of the meeting and circulated to all members. Members, whilst we would normally have a period of 1 hour for this item, right, slight change. We have an hour available for this item. So I may use my discretion to extend this period, but I will be very grateful if members could cooperate and be as concise as possible during this item. I now invite Councillor Butland as leader of the council to introduce the report.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. On behalf of the Cabinet, I formally introduce the report. I would ask, Madam Chairman, if Councillor Mrs Spray could have a few words, because there are issues which have happened since the report was done. So with your permission, could she take my time, please?
Yep.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Butland. Members will no doubt have seen that several communications have come out recently from the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government within the last few days, in fact, with regards to the planning process. This is part of the government's aim to reform the planning system, make it more accessible for local communities, but there is a particularly strong emphasis on achieving best practice on developments by introducing a national model design code. Now, I firmly believe that this authority already looks for and does achieve a high standard of design. For example, the Broad Road site was shortlisted last year by the Royal Town Planning Institute for an award in design excellence. Now, we achieve this high standard by working with agents and developers at an early stage, but of course there are always improvements to be made. We will in any case, under the revised NPPF, be required to adopt a new design code for our district. Several of our neighbours are already taking part in an earlier pilot scheme on design, namely Colchester, Tendring, and I think Essex County Council. Yes, I'm just getting a nod from my officer. So we await the outcomes of those discussions with interest, and I'm sure we can all learn from each other. I have one other additional point to make, and this is in anticipation of a possible question from Councillor Abbott. He will be pleased to hear, I'm sure, that on the 9th of August there will be a meeting between some of our officers and the officers from Place Services to start looking at the Silver End Conservation Guide and the updating of that document and the scope of the appraisal. This first meeting will just be between officers, but there will be opportunities at subsequent meetings for both myself as the portfolio holder and Councillor Abbott as a ward councillor and other representatives from Silver End to attend those meetings. I know this has been a long time coming, but it is at last going to be getting underway. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Councillor Spray. So do I ask anyone else? Right. Do any members have any questions for Councillor Butland or any other members of the Cabinet? Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My first two questions are to the Leader of the Council. He mentions joint working with Essex County Council. Is that joint working going to include the potential for devolving low-risk highway works to Braintree District Council? In my 8 years at Essex, and prior to that and since, I am of the opinion, and having spoken to many parish councils and residents, that the County Council is often failing residents and local communities by not dealing with issues in a timely way, such as, for example, leaving rural fingerpost signs to rot or even fall down, and leaving straightforward potholes on roads and footways for months or even years. So is that part of the consideration? That Braintree could take on that work with the budget, obviously. Second question to the Leader. Obviously there's a timing issue here, but Essex, the Essex, get the correct title, Net Zero report has now been published by the Essex Climate Action Commission. So will the BDC Climate Action Plan align with that report?
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Councillor Garrett.
Sorry, Chairman. Councillor Butler to reply to them.
Oh, right, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm going to reply to both questions, but I almost feel I've got more of a county hat on in replying. But I think it might help. As the Cabinet Member at County which has devolution, that isn't just devolution from central government to local government, but also what we can do across the county. And I am aware, because we've already had in Braintree input from the leader and the deputy leader of Essex County Council, who attended the strategic planning day of this cabinet, and they are in the course of going around all the district, city and borough councils, leader to leader, to ascertain what things people might wish to see, and this certainly could well be one of them. I would also say that Councillor Lee Scott, who is the new Cabinet Member for Highways, again, I think at the moment has visited 8 or 9 of the district council. So that is well in hand. On the second issue about the net zero report, etc., the county council will be considering that and will then decide what aspects of it will adopt or not, as the case may be, because it's an independent report which will be considered. And in the light of that, clearly this council will want to align its actions and policies together, because I think it's important that we don't end up with one county council, 12 district boroughs and city, and 2 unitaries, all with their own different policies. We want, as far as possible, that those are brought together. So those discussions will take place. What I would say is, I think there has been a quite significant change in the attitude of the leadership of the Essex County Council to working together with other authorities than perhaps Councillor Abbott and certainly myself were aware of prior to last May.
Thank you. Councillor Abbott, did you wish to ask any more questions? You have another.
I'll do my other ones now, yeah. Question to Councillor Spray. Thank you for your update on the Silver End Conservation Guide and the date of 9th of August for the officer meeting. Can you reassure us locally, and this is myself and Councillor Wright, that we will have a clear timetable and process for the Silver End Conservation Area Guide, including the Parish Council, Heritage Group and other relevant people, so that we can judge how progress is being made? And shall I ask my final question now? Yep. Final question is to Councillor Rickey. Would he, as the Cabinet Member, agree that in order to encourage safer cycling, and this is something that came up at the cycling group meeting, and pertains to my question just now to Councillor Butler, Essex County Council simply needs to repair potholes on roads much more quickly where these are a danger to cyclists, i.e. on the near side wheel track line, and there are numerous examples I could cite where colossal holes are left. Cyclist doesn't see them and they're full of water, they're going to come off their bike. We really need to get to grips with this. Would he agree that that's got to be a priority in making cycling safer in Braintree District? Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Spray.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, Councillor, I can confirm that following that meeting on the 9th of August, there will be a timetable issued detailing further meetings and giving some surety around the process. That will be happening. Thank you.
Councillor Rickey, did you?
In answer to Councillor Abbott's question, yes, of course, the number of potholes is concerning, and it is a safety issue not just for cyclists, but also car users. I've seen many car users try to avoid potholes, and in doing so, putting themselves into oncoming traffic on the other side of the road. So it is front and centre of not just our cycling strategy, but also response to safer roads across the district, and I'll make sure that it's brought up at the relevant time. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have a question for Councillor Bowers, the Cabinet Member for Housing, Assets and Skills. I have a particular interest in health, and I welcome the news that the Sybil Headingham Medical Facility project is being transferred to a third party, so this can enable work to commence next year. Would the Cabinet Member agree with me that this is indeed very good news for the residents of Sybil Headingham and Castle Headingham, as well as the surrounding area? And this new facility, when it comes to fruition, can only improve the healthcare provision for this area of the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garrett. Councillor Bowers.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Many thanks for your comments and questions, Councillor Garrett. I obviously completely agree with you. This is really good news for the residents of the district, for this facility that will serve in Sybil Headingham and Castle Headingham and the surrounding area. This site, as members will be aware, has a long history, and I'm very thankful that we look like we're finally getting a resolution to bringing this to fruition, and look forward to the work beginning on site. I think it's in the spring of next year. This will also be one of our manifesto pledges at the last district elections, and it shows that, again, we don't just say things, we just do them, and it's a perfect example of that to improve the lives of the residents of our district. Really, thanks, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowers. Councillor Unsworth.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just a very quick one for Councillor Spray. As the Braintree webpage still mentions that we are looking into the community infrastructure levy, could we have an update as to whether we have an opportunity to adopt that through the new planning changes and or how we're progressing with that? Appreciate it might be a difficult one tonight, and I'm happy to have a written answer on this one. Thank you.
I think, did you want to? You just want to answer?
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Everyone's hands
I think, Councillor Unsworth, I will provide you with a written response to that one, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wrench.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My question is to Councillor Cunningham regarding item 5, his bottom paragraph of his report, which mentions e-scooters. Just this month, a concerned local resident contacted me regarding the nuisance and danger e-scooters can cause. I personally feel we definitely need to develop more sustainable motor transport, and on the whole, pleased to see the trial currently in place on the Springwood Industrial Estate. We don't seem to have random misplaced scooters blocking pathways like I've seen in other nearby towns and cities. I've also first-hand experience of witnessing police confiscate e-scooters where riders are uninsured or are riding recklessly. It seems there is currently confusion as to who can ride an e-scooter and where they can too. They're easily accessible to buy online, but I think they should be used on private lands. I believe that to ride on public land, they must have insurance, the rider have a licence, and the scooter must to be of a certain safety standard. I asked the Cabinet Member to reassure any concerned residents may have that the trial is in place with the legislation, and could he update us on the trial today, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Grateful to Councillor Wrench for his question. Colleagues may remember that in the spring of summer 2020, the Department for Transport announced a proposal to trial the use of electric scooters in named pilot areas. Local authorities were encouraged to apply to become a pilot area, and Essex County Council, with the support of districts, drafted proposals for Basildon, Braintree, Brentwood, Clacton, Chelmsford and Colchester. ECC then identified a preferred supplier, Spin, and submitted to their proposals to the DFT. This trial came to fruition. Unlike other neighbouring areas, the scooters that are trialled in Braintree are not just a pick it up and take it for a ride and leave it. You have to sign up for a period of a month. Just in terms of some of the safety aspects and the legal requirements, he's absolutely right with what he said. E-scooters are classified as motor vehicles. They require a valid driving licence and insurance to operate, and all scooters must meet strict DFT safety criteria. E-scooters can be operated up to a maximum of 15 miles per hour, and it's advisable that proper protective equipment is worn. By working with a large company such as Spin, you have reliable vehicles that have a definite corporate branding, so you're able to differentiate between those and unofficial scooters. What I'll do, Madam Chairman, is this is something that's I'm sure interest to a lot of members, I'll provide an updated note on where we are with the scooters. The trial in Braintree, I would say, has perhaps not been as successful. Take-up has not been as high as in other districts, although the particular scheme on the Springwood has been met with a positive reception from businesses. I'll produce an update note relating to this and circulate it to all members. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sandham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. There's concern being expressed in both Kelvedon and Fearing Parish Councils that discussions are apparently taking place between BDC and potential large-scale developers, such as Crown Estates, but that local councils are not currently able to have any input into these discussions. When can we expect the members' forums to start so that local residents' views can be represented by their elected councillors and their parish councils? Thank you.
Councillor Spray.
Madam Chairman, I'm assuming, Councillor Sandham, that was aimed at me, the question. Thank you. Yes, the Members' Forum, which was agreed as part of the revised scheme of delegation. At the moment, officers are working on the terms of reference for it. There is a certain amount of setting up to do as to how they're going to work, what governance involvement is needed and so on. But officers are working on that now. I can't, at the moment, this evening, give you a timetable for when they're likely to start. If I do get any further updated information on that, I will give you a further response. But yes, it's something that we look forward to because it will give the opportunity for members of the Planning Committee to discuss at a very early stage with developers what they propose to do on sites that they're putting forward, and to have an open but obviously non-determined discussion around design, layout and so on. So we look forward to it happening, and as I say, if I have any further information on timescales, I will let you know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spray. Councillor Kilmartin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've got two questions. The first one is, do we have any plans to commemorate the Jubilee of Elizabeth II? We are all living under the most extraordinary monarchy, and I do think that our district council should pay some kind of regard to the fact that we've lived under this and that this amazing lady is still with us. So could we please perhaps get some kind of little work group together and have a look at how we could commemorate it? Thank you. And my second question is medical, I'm afraid. How are we doing with extra medical help in Whittam at the moment? It's all gone very quiet, but our population is not quiet. We've got a hugely growing population all around our town, north, south, west and east. One of the surgeries has only had one doctor for 18 months. People are using A&E when they shouldn't be having to. Where do we stand with the medical help in Whittam, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kilmartin. Councillor Butland.
Thank you. I'll answer the first question, and Councillor Tattersley will answer the second one. As regards arrangements or suggestion of something to commemorate that, which I entirely agree with Councillor Kilmartin, is something which very few of us will actually see in our lifetime. I have asked Councillor Ritchie to bring together a group of members to consider ways in which we might be able to mark the occasion across the district. We will, of course, also want to work with towns and parishes who I know some of them themselves are already working or beginning to think what should be done. So Councillor Ritchie will be leading that with his communities hat on.
Councillor Tattersalley.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have tried to explain a number of times that we're not the health providers. That really is the responsibility of the National Health Service. And while, as you're aware, we've done an awful lot that we can to provide the health service through infrastructure and making Section 106 part of any sort of planning permission, the decision to use that money that we've got is entirely down to the National Health Service. But I take the point. I've lived in an area where doctors have left for one reason and another, and it can be very frustrating. But we have lots of meetings with the NHS, and I will be raising these issues specifically for the Witham and surrounding areas.
Thank you, Councillor Tattersalley. Councillor Hicks, please.
Yeah, mine is not so much a question as a declaration. As a late MPI, as I'm a contractor for the DVSA, and on page 59 there's mention of your facility being inspected, which I had no knowledge of until I read this document. That's it.
Well, who's going to answer? Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chairman. Question for Councillors Tattersalley and maybe Gabrielle Spray. Some new residents in Rivenall have been told they cannot register with the doctor's surgeries in Witham, as Rivenall is now in the catchment area for Silver End. The Silver End surgery is already oversubscribed and they are not taking any more patients. Do we need to stop granting more housing consents in Rivenall, Silver End and Cressing until the doctor's surgery and capacity in Silver End has been extended? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wright. Councillor Tattersalley, do you want to answer that one?
Well, I'd be delighted to try and have a go at it, but I think it is actually Councillor Spray, because this is about planning permissions and Section 106 agreements for increased health facilities. I know that we always give an opportunity to the NHS to ask for additional Section 106 agreements where areas have been adversely affected by new developments, but at the end of the day, it really is down to them whether they want to take advantage of that, not ourselves.
Thank you, Councillor Tattersalley. Councillor Beebis.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to ask for a little bit of supportive nudge, I think, from the Cabinet Member, Councillor Gabrielle Spray, in terms of the Hedingham Section 106 agreement. And I mean, I'm absolutely delighted as a resident of the Hedinghams as well that the medical centre is going to come online. We're almost sort of 10 years down the track in waiting for this. And I'm really grateful at the partnership meeting that's been set up by Neil Jones with myself and Councillor Johnson and the Parish Council. But we have a great frustration on the ground in terms of the Riverside Walk still waiting to be completed, with part of it partially still very, very muddy and the local school children using that route. I had a great phone call from our District Council Chairman on the NatWest Bank building, and we've still got a cloud that hangs over that one as well, with almost £1 million of Section 106, which is still yet to be completed. I would be really grateful if Councillor Gabrielle Spray could perhaps get involved with this as well and see whether we can finally get not only the doctor's surgery but the completion of the Riverside Walk, the NatWest Bank building, the allotments and the additional sports equipment and facilities over the line. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bevis. Councillor Spray.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Bevis. Yes, I do know about the meeting with Neil Jones, which I'm sure will be helpful. With regards to the NHS, I think I will just refer to my colleague Councillor Tattersley's response, which is that we always do our best through Section 106 agreements to get the best deal that we can, both with education and with health services, but it is not, it's not our call. With regard to the Riverside Walk completion and so on, I will provide a written answer to you on that one.
Thank you, Councillor Spray. Councillor Barker.
Thank you. It's another question for Councillor Spray, which we're talking this evening. Councillor Spray, I was really interested to hear your comments about the government's proposals regarding design codes, which I think is actually very welcome. I wonder whether you would agree with me that actually this council, we already place a big focus on design, including employing an external urban design consultant when necessary, and that our planning officers are constantly pushing developers to improve design on developments, and we are as a result seeing some really good quality developments coming forward as a result of their efforts. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Yes, absolutely agree. As I said in my earlier statement, we do already, I think, have a very good record in this authority of achieving good quality and high standard design developments, whether that's for 10 homes or 500. And we do that largely by expecting and asking developers and agents to collaborate with us pre-application stage. Sometimes that's more successful than others, but we do our very best, and I agree absolutely that this authority, I think, does already have a good reputation for high quality of design. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spray. Councillor Unsworth.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just a very quick one for Councillor Butland, if I may. The meeting that you note of the 12th of July, the DCN meeting for the proposed waste reforms, can I ask you to provide a bit more detail on that, please? And I'm happy to have a written answer. Thank you.
Yes, I will by all means do that. But I just give a flavour, if I may, of the views of many district councils. I'm going to be quite open. I think the Minister was poor in her answers on this, and many leaders were very strongly of the opinion that this was not about devolving power to local authorities, but actually taking it away. There was a feeling that on the issue of waste, it was reasonable for government to set targets, but really it should be left to local authorities to decide how they meet those targets. I think there is a long way to go through you, Madam Chairman, on these proposals and to see what eventually comes out at the end of it. But I am very much of the same opinion as the majority of council leaders on that. This is something which is best done by local government, not by Whitehall.
Councillor Dervish.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My question is to Councillor Ritchie, Cabinet Member for Communities. I was very much welcome item 8.2 on domestic abuse campaign. It's good to see this within your report, but would the Cabinet Member agree with me that more can be done by implementing awareness within our local communities, and something I would very much welcome? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lynch.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Jervis, for your question. Absolutely, there's always more to be done in the instances of domestic abuse. It's one of the hidden harms that we don't often see enough of, but something that, when it does happen, has huge effect, not just for those involved, also the younger family members too. Obviously, the Domestic Abuse Act 2021 gives us more governance and involvement for this, and it's something we will actively seek to flex on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've got a second question for Councillor Tattersley. If expansion of the Silver End surgery is purely NHS and nothing to do with BDC, can Councillor Tattersley say why BDC own the Silver End surgery?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The Council, of course, have taken advantage of the opportunities that we have with land ownership and access to budgets. And if it's possible for us to provide a building, then we will always try and do that if it's financially viable for us to do it. But at the end of the day, we can only make suggestions to the NHS, and if they don't want to use it, then clearly they won't. The NHS will have far more idea than any of us on how pressurised the doctors and the number of patients that doctors are having to see. I've got no idea how we would find that out or could influence it. We certainly can't be employing doctors or bringing doctors into this area. That's for the NHS to do. But I think I've said before, we do meet representatives from the NHS often, and I will be making the representations that you're asking for to try and get some clarity around it. I know that Councillor Spray did provide details of the budgets that were available through Section 106 agreements, and they're being published and sent round to all members. So it's not shortage of money, it is actually shortage of a will by the NHS to try and do something.
Thank you, Councillor Tattersley. Councillor Raymond. Councillor Raymond, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My question is for Councillor John McKee, Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Transformation. It's on item 3.1, page 57. I welcome the news of the council tax collection in year of 2021. Would the Cabinet Member agree with me that the officers has done an amazing job, and by achieving to 20.56%, which is higher in last 3 years, would the Cabinet Member mind sharing the results with the other members? Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Raymond. Councillor McGee.
I'm not sure I understood the question. Could you ask it again? Sorry, I was trying to catch up with what the question was. Apologies.
Would you agree that the officers has done a great job in relation to the council tax collected in year of 2021, which is the higher in comparison to in last 3 years?
That's a very easy question to answer. Yes, I would of course agree with that, and I think actually we've talked previously in my first piece, and I think several times this evening we've talked about the work that officers have done during the pandemic, and actually this is just one example of the way that we have responded. And I think if I would ask Trevor Wilson to make comment, I won't, but if he would make comment, he would say that we've had this council tax without the use of courts, because they have not been allowed during the pandemic. And this has been done by writing gentle letters, encouraging people using soft skills to get recover the money. So I think it is a testament to the quality of not just the leadership, but also the whole team. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKee. Anyone else have any other questions? No? Councillor Hensman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just thought I'd jump on the back of Councillor Raymond's question in that there was an interesting piece on BBC Essex that we may be a victim of our own success in that a listener phoned in and suggested that the council actually collects TV licensing money. So watch out.
Be interesting. Thank you very much. I think that's probably all the questions now, isn't it? Yes, it is. Yeah? Okay, that's brilliant. We're ahead of schedule. So that is the end, concludes this item. Any question requiring a written response will be answered within 10 working days of this meeting and shared with all members. Members, as there's no further business items on the agenda for discussion, this concludes our business for this evening. But can I remind you that the audio recording of this meeting will be published on the Council's YouTube channel website. And is that going to be tomorrow?
It might be on Wednesday, Chairman.
Pardon?
It might be on Wednesday, but we'll do it as soon as we possibly
Tomorrow,
can.
yeah, okay. Thank you very much for coming, everybody. And I would ask that you remain seated until your row has been invited to leave by the governance officers. We keep somebody